Our planet is home to over 1 million known species of insects, and likely millions more undiscovered species. Most of them are just a few millimeters long, with the tiniest insects, like fairy flies, measuring as wide as a human hair. Modern insects may be small, but long ago, our planet was home to species that far surpassed any living insects in the world today. These oversized arthropods peaked during the late Carboniferous and early Permian periods, roughly 300 million years ago. This was a unique time in our planet's history. All of Earth's major land masses were slowly moving toward each other, a process that would eventually form a supercontinent called Pangaea. As continents merged, they changed the topography of our world, closing waterways and creating new mountain ranges. These continental collisions also caused a significant shift in our planet's climate. For much of the Carboniferous period, the global climate was relatively warm and tropical. High humidity and abundant rainfall supported ecosystems full of dense, lush vegetation. Eventually, the formation of Pangaea isolated many of these ecosystems from coastlines, causing them to become hotter and drier. But before that happened, there was a golden window when the conditions on Earth were ideal for the emergence of new and gigantic animals, including the largest insects to ever live. We are not 100% certain why insects grew more gigantic during the late Carboniferous and early Permian periods, but according to one prominent theory, insect body sizes increased because of unusually high levels of oxygen. Around 300 million years ago, oxygen levels peaked at approximately 35%, a dramatic increase compared to oxygen levels today. This period of hyperoxia contributed to a surge of terrestrial and marine diversity that continued into the early Permian. While oxygen benefited animals at all trophic levels, it especially aided species with greater than average metabolic demands. Enter the largest insect to ever exist on our planet, a giant dragonfly-like predator called Meganeuropsis permiana, which lived roughly 290 million years ago. With a wingspan rivaling some modern birds, Meganeuropsis dominated the skies during the early Permian period. To the naked eye, this animal resembled a modern dragonfly, but it lacked certain key traits, like the distinctive shape of a dragonfly's wing veins. Instead, Meganeuropsis belonged to an order of flying predators informally known as griffin flies. Not all griffin fly species were especially large. Many were about the size of a dragonfly today, but the biggest among them, like Meganeuropsis, grew to record sizes. Its wingspan reached an estimated 71 centimeters, or 2.3 feet across. It was the largest griffin fly and had the widest wingspan of any known insect on Earth. Its cousin, Meganeura mannii, ranks a close second, with an estimated wingspan of 65 to 70 centimeters. By comparison, the giant petaltail, one of the largest living dragonflies, has a wingspan of only 16 centimeters. Today, dragonflies enjoy humid climates and often live around bodies of water, where they feed and reproduce. The same was likely true for our charming griffin fly. The main fossil specimen of Meganeuropsis comes from the Midwestern United States, specifically Elmo, Kansas. Today, the American Midwest is mostly temperate, with open prairies, rolling hills, and scattered forests. But in the early Permian, it was drowning in shallow water. Much of this area was covered by inland seas and slow-moving rivers, which often flooded their banks. Warm, sediment-rich water regularly flowed into low-lying areas, creating expansive swamps and wetlands. These ecosystems were dominated by plants that enjoyed dense, waterlogged soil, like ferns and horsetails. One type of ancient horsetail, known as calamites, grew to tree-like sizes, contributing to strange-looking forests unlike any in the world today. These tropical forests provided food and shelter for many species of animals, including insects, amphibians, fish, reptiles, and the ancestors of early mammals. Within its natural ecosystems, Meganeuropsis was a predator, and likely a very effective one. Its diet probably consisted of other insects, like beetles, primitive cockroaches, and smaller griffin flies. Given its size and strength, it may have also consumed small amphibians, like temnospondyls, which flourished around the water's edge. Meganeuropsis was fast and agile enough to pursue prey, but it may also have ambushed its victims in order to conserve energy. While its hunting tactics are not definitively known, it might have perched on branches or logs around bodies of water, where insects and small amphibians were especially plentiful. It could also have hunted from the air, flying through swamps and forests while using its large eyes to scan for food. Like dragonflies today, Meganeuropsis probably had sharp vision. Its compound eyes could spot even the tiniest movements in its busy environment. It also had a wide field of view, thanks to the position of its eyes on the sides of its head. This made it much easier for Meganeuropsis to spot and track small animals hidden in the dense vegetation below. Once it spotted its victim, it dove down at high speeds, surprising its prey from behind or above. Next, it may have snatched its prey out of midair by forming a spiny basket with its long appendages, similar to modern-day dragonflies. After catching its prey, Meganeuropsis used its strong mandibles to tear it apart, piece by piece. Giant griffinflies like Meganeuropsis occupied a relatively empty niche in prehistoric swamps and wetlands. Insects were some of the only flying animals around 290 million years ago. Gliding reptiles would not emerge for at least another 30 million years, and birds did not evolve until significant years of that. As a result, griffinflies faced little competition in the air, which likely played a part in the evolution of their gigantic size. The largest species were almost all griffinflies, but they were not the only oversized insects during the late Carboniferous and early Permian periods. A lesser-known species called Metatharus enormis inhabited many of the same tropical swamps and forests. Like other members of the extinct order Paleodictyoptera, it had 2 pairs of wings attached to its thorax. It also possessed small wing-like projections called parietal lobes on its prothorax, which may have given the appearance of additional wing-like structures, but were not true wings. Metatharus also boasted a strange beak-like mouth, which allowed it to puncture plant tissues, such as those from calamites, and drink their liquids. Though not as large as giant griffinflies, Metatharus had an impressive wingspan of 56 centimeters, which is still much larger than any insects today. These animals represent the biggest insects on Earth, but they were far from the largest arthropods, many of which lived during the same time period. Though it is often called the Age of Insects, the late Carboniferous and early Permian periods saw trends of gigantism among many arthropods, including scorpions, and also ancient myriapods, the relatives of modern-day millipedes. These animals lived in the same humid, oxygen-rich ecosystems where they rose to dominance and grew to sizes that would make your skin crawl. One of the largest arthropods of the time period was a huge myriapod called Arthropods armata. This animal stretched up to 2.5 meters long, though some incomplete fossils suggest it grew even longer. Like millipedes today, it had a long, segmented body, covered in armored plates, that protected its legs as it scuttled along the ground. When evidence of this animal was first discovered, some paleontologists believed it was a scavenge predator. Given its size and durability, they imagined it hunting on the ground, capturing insects and amphibians with crushing mandibles. But more recent findings have changed the story of this giant myriapod. It turns out that Arthropods subsisted on a diet of mostly plant matter, chowing down on seeds, leaf litter, and woody debris, while Arthropods would have surely made a captivating predator, ripe for dramatization by Hollywood and a mainstay for nightmares. These enormous arthropods were dietary pacifists. Unfortunately, none of these gigantic arthropods would survive beyond the Permian period. They emerged during a rare moment when oxygen levels were high, rainfall was abundant, and tropical ecosystems covered much of the Earth. After the early Permian, oxygen levels began gradually declining, and many tropical biomes became increasingly arid, transforming some swamps into harsh deserts. This climate change was especially devastating for lush, humid forest ecosystems. Many species, like giant insects, depended on these forests for food and shelter, but as they shrunk and collapsed, populations of forest-dwelling animals declined, and in some cases, disappeared completely. As climate change altered Earth's ecosystems, giant insects were dealt another evolutionary challenge. Their ecosystems were becoming populated by larger vertebrates, like synapsids, which were the ancestors of mammals, and sauropsids, the ancestors of reptiles and birds. Predators developed better locomotion, sensory organs, and feeding mechanisms, making them more effective hunters. At the same time, larger arthropods were more conspicuous and possibly less agile, making them easier targets. Smaller arthropods could evade predators more effectively, giving them a survival advantage. As synapsids and sauropsids increased in number, populations of giant insects dwindled even further. Eventually, a combination of these environmental pressures drove many of our planet's largest insects to miniaturization, or extinction. As if that wasn't gloomy enough, a global cataclysm would soon ravage our planet. About 252 million years ago, Earth experienced the largest mass extinction event in its entire history, known simply as the Great Dying. Many of Earth's most extraordinary arthropods, such as the famous trilobites, were finally finished off. Many families of insects were erased from our planet, while others were pushed to the brink. Those insects that survived the extinction event were generally smaller in size and more adaptable to changes in their environments. These insects would diversify into the many species we know today. However, the giants of the Carboniferous and Permian never returned. Someday, insects may experience another wave of gigantism, but until then, the giant flyers of this ancient era will remain the biggest insects ever known.